the OG has finally gotten his first transformation, and quite a bit happens in this comic. So let's begin. Now in the first panel, we can see where Ben is staring in bewilderment at his cool now glowing claw hands. I can only really assume that he's bewildered because he's wearing a mask. But anyways, he turns his head and he notices a lake nearby. And since he needs to see what's happened to him, he thinks of looking at his reflection. So he turns and jets off and instantly makes it over to the river like within a split second. What's even more interesting is that his perception hasn't caught up to his own movements, so he falls over on his face. He sort of got a visual whiplash because of his own powers, because it's almost as if he teleported or his body just moved over there on its own almost. I found that to be so interesting on my first reading because his perception should match his speed, just like what we saw with Prime Accelerate in the episodes like The Unnaturals, where he was able to have a mannequin challenge sort of perception of these guys, and also how he was able to dodge the attacks of an enhanced Vilgax in Secrets. This is a big staple for any speedster overall, just like Red Rush and the Flash, who always see things in slow motion. Especially Quicksilver, who has one of the greatest slow motion speed scenes that I've ever seen. But that's the last thing on Ben's mind, since he is tackling the sheer shock and awe of looking at his new reflection of himself, being a blue lizard. Now, gotta hand it to Dux, this shot is really good. Just the aesthetic and the glowing eyes, they just really do it for me. Anyway, after Ben realizes what's going on and that he has become some strangely transformed creature, he screams out in horror. Finally, and that's what I've been waiting for. That does mean I get to use this clip. Alright, so then he jets off because he's scared, and we get to see some sick pages of Accelerate covering some insane distance in a short span of time. But because his perception doesn't line up with his speed, he ends up booming right off of a cliff, and even though he's about to fall to his potential demise, he has to strike this pose. Anyways, he lands himself with a sick Kinoceleran superhero pose. I would personally give him a 10 for the landing and a plus 20 for the aura points. And as Ben is about to take a deep breath, a truck comes bursting down the road. It's Orash from the Ink Tank. Now, for those who don't know who Orash is, this guy is one of the core members of the Ink Tank, who are basically the granddads of the Ben 10 community. He's responsible for the creation of many of the more popular fan-made Ultimate Aliens, like his versions of Ultimate Accelerate and Ultimate Armadillo, and so on. He's also an integral artist in the And Beyond series from the Ink Tank, and he's also a character in the 5 Years Later fan comic series as well. Which makes me wonder, since he's also in Absolute Ben 10, does that make him a multiversal constant? Like maybe someone like the Watcher, but he's actually along for the ride? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, he swerves the truck out of the way and avoids Ben. However, he is heading right towards a cliff. Orash tries to hit the brakes here to save himself, but he is utterly cooked. But of course, there's no way the brakes would have worked here anyways, because trucks going at a certain speed are damn near impossible to stop instantaneously. This is because of the crazy weight and their braking systems. You see, trucks use a kind of brakes called air brakes that are designed to stop heavy vehicles, like this monstrous thing. These are completely different from hydraulic brakes like what we use in cars, because this uses air pressure to stop these heavy vehicles. Now, this truck that Orash is driving is a trailer, and that's gonna carry a lot of weight. And even though a truck will have these custom built air pressurized brakes in them, they will still have a little bit of a delay before the truck can come to a relatively sudden stop. So Orash is 100% cooked. Now, this truck driver is barreling towards his death, and Ben swerves his head around in a sort of panic, wondering what he must do in order to help. This moment starts to bring out something that we see pretty plain in classic Ben Tennyson in his early days, and that develops more as he ages, which is his innate desire to want to help people. We get a good demonstration of this in episode 1, where Ben is attempting to stop some bullies without any Omnitrix or any fighting ability, just pure willpower and servitude. But in the heat of the moment, Ben has a flashback to his grandpa, in the moments of when he was just learning to swim, and he says, "Remember, Ben, panicking will only cause you to sink. Focus on your form. Trust yourself, even if you're scared." This is such a deep line that personally hit me because it reminds me of the quote about the bird and the branch, where the bird must trust its wings in moments of trouble. It sort of seems like a little bit of a parallel to Jujutsu Kaisen as well, where Gojo gives a very important word to Megumi, where he tells him that Even if you depend on others, you still die alone, so you must foster your own strength. Learn to trust yourself. So it's just a really good line. Anyways, Ben in this moment must rely on himself and his instincts in order to be successful. And right then and there, Ben locks in and he jets off towards the truck. He then shifts into a time-dilated speed perception, like what other speedsters across fiction normally have. This is when they see stuff in slow motion. However, Ben's is a bit different. He saves Orash from the truck that was about to go cliff diving, and in the moment, the only thing I can think about is how he was able to toggle, or better yet, turn on and off his super speed perception, which reminds me a lot of this old school anime called Cyborg 009. It follows a story about a few augmented humans who have superpowers, and the main character, Cyborg 009, has a mode that enables him to shift into hyperspeed like that. He does this by grinding his molars together and saying acceleration mode, which sends him into a crazy speed that also gives him blue tinted slow motion perception. So the parallel seems like a form of inspiration, but I don't know, it just seems like a really good connection. However, Orash's truck goes boom, and then we cut back to Gwen coming back into the forest to check up on Ben. She walks in to see the emptied Omnitrix space pod and starts looking around in bewilderment. But then is when we see something rising out of the water. A large orange figure slowly emerges, and it seems to be it's Absolute Crab, and he has no words. Now, this shocked me since Dan did tease that we were getting a villain at the end of this chapter, but I had no idea that this would be Absolute Crab. However, it creatively makes a lot of sense since this bounty hunter's first debut was in hot pursuit of the Omnitrix in the episode Hunted. Now, even though his species isn't explored much, here's some information for what you should expect from him. Crab is a member of the species known as the Pisces Preman. These are aliens that come from the same planet as Ripjaws. Now, our specimen here is actually a war veteran who lost most of his organic body parts in the war between Pisces and Pyros, which is the planet of Heat Blast. He only has 5% of his natural-born Pisces Preman body left, and now has been retrofitted with cybernetic enhancements that made him into the dangerous bounty hunter we know in the Prime timeline. Crab has strong ties and affiliations with the Squidman himself, Vilgax, and his arrival spells danger for the Tennysons. Also, here's an extra fun fact. He is the only confirmed member of his species in the show, but there's another unconfirmed Preman who isn't cybernetically enhanced, and he is in this episode. Pretty cool, right? And since he has such vast and incredible knowledge about the vast amount of aliens around the universe, he will definitely be a formidable fight for Ben next chapter when Accelerate takes him on in an effort to save his endangered cousin. Now this is going to be good, but until we get the next chapter, find out here how these other fan Omnitrixes would take on the Omnidroid from Incredibles.